Mr. Hurley, the assistant U.S. attorney who declined the case, stated that because the gun was in Mexico, the body of the crime was in Mexico, we have no case, and just outright declined prosecution for that reason. We had identified additional straw buyers in Mr. Varela's network. We had gotten cooperating statements from them. They also went to jail. This could have been a very good federal case, but again, the U.S. Attorney's Office declined it because, in their opinion, the gun being in Mexico meant that the evidence of the crime was in Mexico.
Do you know any other office or region that applies that type of standard to go forward with prosecutions?
Sir, I was told this was a Ninth Circuit issue, but I've had discussions with prosecutors in Los Angeles, which is also in the Ninth Circuit, that say that they didn't carry it to that extreme. And what I will say for the record, sir, is since then, since Mr. Hurley is no longer running the firearms unit, he's been replaced or now answers to another supervisor, they've now amended that to say that if we can go down and physically examine the weapon or have one of our assets in Mexico examine the weapon, that they will now charge those crimes. But for 2 years where I was in charge of the firearms trafficking unit, if the gun went to Mexico, that case was dead.
Okay. You also testified regarding the Excalibur gun store case in 2008. You said the dealer in that case admitted that about 1,000 firearms were trafficked to Mexico, and half a dozen of them were found around the dead body of cartel leader Beltran Leyva, who was killed by the Mexican Naval Infantry. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. For the record, though, I'd like to point out that that case was brought to trial by the Arizona Attorney General's office. However, the gun dealer, the case was dismissed by the judge.
Right.
So that case was dismissed.
Yeah.
However, what I will say, in regards to that case, is I did, after that case was declined by the United States Attorney's Office, present that case to the Southern District of New York for prosecution because they were doing a lot of international narcotics trafficking cases. And that office had told me if we could have shown one wire transfer, one banking transaction through their district, they would have been interested in taking that case. Meanwhile, in the state where all these crimes took place, they were readily willing to just dismiss prosecution efforts.
Right. But both the Washington Post and PBS Frontline support your version, I guess, concluded that if there were ever a good case against a set of rogue gun traffickers, the case against the owner of Excalibur gun store was it. And I'll read from the excerpt from Washington Post here. It says, this was a case that seemingly had everything in its favor. In this case, the agents had tons of evidence, surveillance, recorded phone calls, confidential informants, and undercover agents posing as straw buyers. But this case was also denied, as you say, by the Assistant U.S. Attorney in Phoenix. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The same Assistant U.S. Attorney who was the prosecutor in the Fast and Furious investigation, as a matter of fact.
Okay. And then in 2009, 2010, I'm running out of time, you also say the same Assistant U.S. Attorney declined dozens of other cases. Is that correct?
After 2009, sir, my duties were changed to a home invasion investigation, so I'm not certain what happened with the firearms trafficking investigation.
What's your assessment of why this specific U.S. Attorney repeatedly refused to take gun cases? Do you have any?
Sir, I don't know. I couldn't give you a reason as to why.
Okay, maybe we should have him in for questioning.
But that'd be great.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I've run out of time.
Would the gentleman like an additional 30 seconds?
Please, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Without objection.
I just want to note that your testimony, which is very good, and look, it takes a lot of courage to do what you gentlemen are doing. It goes back to 2007.
It does.
So, you know, this isn't a political issue because obviously, you know, we're talking about career prosecutors who have been there since the Bush administration, and you cite, as you cite, going back to 2007, you're not alone in your assessment. We've heard other complaints from other witnesses. So I just want to